Hello and welcome to this webinar of the Future of Making Things, Fusion 360 for Furniture Design. My name's Harv Saund, a technical specialist here at Autodesk for Fusion 360 in the UK. So today we're going to go ahead and take a look at just a quick introduction to the future of making things for Fusion 360, and then we're going to go ahead and jump into a technical demonstration with Fusion to go ahead and show off designing a sofa or furniture within Fusion 360. So let's start off with just an introduction to the future of making things here at Autodesk. Now, generally speaking to a lot of our customers, we see that they have quite a linear process. They start off with a concept design when generating a product. These could be just hand sketches, or they could be very rough, rudimentary 3D models. They move into a design phase where they need to put some more production elements to the design. So these could be more detailed design at that stage. Moving into the production phase, so this is where they go ahead and start to look at creating the products, whether this is additive or subtractive manufacture, or even assembly. Into selling that product, and then finally into the operation and retire phase. Now, we term this a traditional product life cycle, and it's only got a fixed product value because around this stage just here, so during the sales and operation and retire phase, we're having to rethink the concept for the new design of product or a different design of product. Now here at Autodesk, we have something called the future of making things. This looks slightly different to this. So during the concept phase, we have a bit more of a personalized engagement with the customer or client. During the design phase, we can go ahead and collaborate with virtual teams. These can be across different time zones or even across different sites. We take into account additive as well as subtractive manufacture, having the ability to go ahead and have more flexible manufacturing techniques. We can engage the customer a little bit more, giving them a bit more of a personalized customer experience because the product is slightly more customized to them. And we can also go ahead and connect those products to IoT and Industry 4.0, having us or giving us the ability to go ahead and see how the product's being used in field and inform that design process a little bit sooner. Now, what this also goes ahead and gives us is the ability to have product as a service. So we don't have to just sell the product anymore. We can also go ahead and sell the services to that. And it gives us that increased lifetime value. And it also goes ahead and allows us a smart or agile product development process, because while that product's out in field, we can then go ahead and start informing those next generation of products a little bit sooner from the data we get from the field. And this is what we term here at Autodesk the future of making things. Now, to solve this, we actually have something called the Product Innovation Platform, and at the center of that sits Fusion. With that, we can go ahead and start to look at the design aspect of the product itself. So this could be anything from ergonomics all the way through to just your standard production level design, through to testing that product, making sure it actually will work in the field, and then going ahead and producing all the relevant information to create the product. We move into the make space. So from here, we can go ahead within that one platform, start to either look at additive manufacture, 3D printing, or going down the route of adding toolpaths for CNC manufacture. And we can also go ahead and move into the use phase, so actually gathering that data while the product's being used to then inform our design and make phases a little bit in more detail. And this goes ahead and gives us a complete solution. So we start off with design, move into make, and then while that product's out in the field, we can then go ahead and gather that data and inform our design processes. Now we're moving on a little bit with these as well. So we're adding new tools to the product innovation platform, such as generative design, giving us the ability to go ahead and look at the costs, material usage, strengths and weights of our design, and optimize that design to suit. We're going ahead and bridging that gap between additive and subtractive manufacture. So maybe you want a metal additive print something and then do some final machining toolpaths on it. So bridging that gap and giving us a nicer look and feel and a flexible approach to manufacturing. Moving into connected products, actually having the ability to have Industry 4.0 and a connected product. So again, giving us that rich data that we can get from field to then inform the next generation of product as we go. Now, you can find Fusion 360 on a lot of social media channels and a lot of websites online. We have the tags there for Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn, so if you did want more information you do have the option to go through social media, but I'll also put our website in at the end as well. So what engineers and designers told us about what their needs were for a next generation CAD solution. One of the key things for engineers and designers is the ability to have one single platform to do a whole host of different tasks. So taking apart, from my expression, is art to part. So having the ability to, in the form phase, create concepts, move that into a more production level design. So start to look at function, so if a part's going to clash or not. Move that into fabrication. So at this stage we then go ahead and fabricate the design, so put CNC toolpaths or 3D print, and then also having the ability to manage that whole process as well via version control. What they also wanted was the ability to have access anywhere. Now, one of the key things with Fusion is that it's not device dependent. So you don't actually have to run a Windows machine. We can also go ahead and run this on a Mac or an Apple. I've also got a Surface that I run this on. So from there, we can quickly and easily go ahead and have a wider range of hardware that we can run Fusion on. And also having the ability to connect teams. Now, in a traditional way, this will be done via email. This could be done via Dropbox, FTP sites, whereas with Fusion, we have a unique in-CAD capability. So from here, we can quickly and easily communicate directly within the CAD solution and then go ahead and connect teams all around the world. And this is why we built Fusion 360. So it's a very quick intro into Fusion itself. And now we're going to go ahead and move into a bit more of the technical side of things. So we term here at Autodesk 3D CAD Reinvented. Completely integrated solution. We can connect with teams and it's also completely accessible. So we're going to move, like I mentioned, into the technical demonstration of Fusion. And with that, we're going to go ahead and look at designing a sofa. So we're going to go ahead and start off in a more concept phase. So we're going to go ahead and develop just a real quick concept of the sofa, make sure that we can get some approval for it prior to us moving a bit further. We then move into a bit of production design. We're going to create a really rudimentary frame for it. We'll move that frame into a bit of testing, make sure that if 3 people are sitting on the sofa, we can then go ahead and make sure that the sofa isn't going to collapse. Into the visualization, so actually going ahead and rendering the sofa, creating some really nice visuals for customers. And then finally into the create phase where we will look at additive as well as subtractive manufacture as well. So 3D printing as well as CNC machining. So let's first off take a look at the concept phase. Now within the concept phase we need to go ahead and generate some concept designs quite quickly. Now we may want to go ahead and start off with just the armchair of the sofa and then start to develop that as we go through. And that's what we're going to go ahead and do here. And we're going to use a technique called T-spline modeling or freeform modeling within Fusion itself. So let's jump into Fusion and let's go ahead and take a look. So this is Fusion 360. It's a very clean, nice, fresh interface itself, so there's very few buttons that you actually need to click. Over on the left hand side of the screen, this is my data panel, so directly from here I can have all the projects that I'm working in at any one time, and from there I can then go ahead and harness each of the CAD files or the image files. As you can see, I've got some PNGs and bits and pieces just here that we can house within the cloud itself at that point. Now we're going to go ahead, like I mentioned, start completely from scratch. So we'll start off by just generating the armrest for the sofa that we're going to create. Now we could do this in a few ways. For any of you on the webinar that is used to your traditional parametric way, we will be going into that, but what we're going to go ahead and start off with is our freeform environment. So from here, to create just a real quick concept, we're going to go ahead and start off using something called T-splines. Now again, for any of you on the webinar that is used to Play-Doh or plasticine, it's kind of the same way. We start with a primitive, like I've hovered over here with a box, and we just start to push and pull to create the kind of shape that we need. So I'm going to just go ahead and start off with the box itself. I'll move out a little bit so that we can get a bit of scope, and then from there we can then start to specify just an overall set of dimensions for the box itself that we're going to be using. So I'm going to make this about 100 by maybe about 200. So I'm going to just literally gauge it with my mouse, but you can also type dimensional values in at this stage. So we'll go for something like that, and then what we'll do is just drag this up a little bit so that it's the right kind of height and size that we need. We have complete options at this stage, so if I wanted to add in something like symmetry, bits and pieces like that, we can then go ahead and add that into the design. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start here, and then we're going to go ahead and start to generate the initial concept itself. Now obviously the sofa needs a flat base, so what we're going to go ahead and do is just flatten off each of this bottom section itself. So I'm just going to capture a few edges just here, and we're just going to go ahead and use what we term crease, and that's just going to go ahead and create a flat edge for us at the bottom of the design. Now we also want this armrest to actually have the ability to have our arm set on it. So what we'll do is we'll pick up on these 4 surfaces or faces just here, and I'm just going to hold down Alt on my keyboard and drag, and this is then going to go ahead and generate us another section that, again, as you can see, I'm just pushing and pulling to kind of create the shape that I want from the armrest itself. I have got a quick question, just I'll put it in now. The webinar will be available on YouTube after we've set this, so again you can actually go ahead and view this a little bit later if you don't catch everything just yet. So all I'm going to do here, I'm just going to quickly and easily start to push and pull some of these splines around just to kind of create the kind of shape that we need for the part itself, or the armrest. So again, as you can see, I'm just using very simple push-pull techniques to do this. Now we may want to go ahead and give this a bit more depth, so I'm just going to grab and drag that section in so we create a nice curve at the bottom. And again, what we may also want to go ahead and do here is just grab the 2 points just here and here and maybe spread those apart a little as well. So again, just using those, again, just that real simple push-pull technique, we can just grab and drag and start to push and pull to create the kind of solution that we need from our design itself. Kind of looking like a cobra's head there, but a very crude version. I apologize for everyone on the webinar. You will have to put up with my bad jokes. So from here, we get a nice kind of concept already going in a really fluid freeform shape that, again, you'd have to potentially, with standard parametrics, create a lot of sketches, create a lot of curves to try and get that kind of shape itself. So I'm going to quickly go, I'm happy with that armrest itself, but what I want to maybe go ahead and do here is just communicate this with someone. So down at the bottom left hand corner of Fusion is our comments tab. So if I just save this document initially, I'm going to just go ahead and call this sofa 123. Be an idea if I could spell, but we'll go for sofa 123. There we go. We'll just save that off. And then with this, we'll then activate our comments itself. So I'm just going to quickly create a quick version of this design. Just give this a little refresh. And this is then going to go ahead and generate us our comments tab. There we go. So within the comments tab itself, from here we can go ahead and start to comment to whoever we want to, or collaborate with whoever we want to. Now this is unique to Fusion. You won't find this on any other CAD system on the market itself, and it's one of the key things for Fusion itself. So from here I can then quickly and easily go armrest done, what do you think? So if we post that, this is then going to go ahead and create a comment to this file that I've actually gone ahead and generated. This is then going to go ahead and upload into an environment where I can quickly and easily start to collaborate with different users. So once it's posted, there we go. What we can do here with Fusion is open this design up within a web browser. Now, one of the things for us here at Autodesk, especially when working with engineers and designers, one of the key things is communication and trying to get that design across to someone. Now, whether you're working with a customer or a team within your company itself, you can use this same method. There's no hardware install, so from here you open this design up on a web browser. We are web browser agnostic, so you don't actually have to open this up on Chrome like I've got it open here. We can share this design with anyone. So again, if you wanted to share this with a customer, you have the option to do this as a public link, or you can email or embed them a link. And as you can see, I've got that comment on the right hand side of the screen. Now I'm just going to pop back a little bit here. So this is the folder that I've created that sofa in, and as you can see, we've also got just a quick comment to say, yep, this is the person who's using this part at any one time. So if I go into that part, hit the View tab, you then have a complete 3D view that you can go ahead and use. Now, I'll mention that it's web browser agnostic. What we've also got here is device agnostic. So you don't actually have to open this up on a web browser on a desktop machine. You can actually open this up on a mobile device. We have a Fusion 360 app, so you can quickly and easily start to zoom, pan, rotate. You can then go ahead and start to create comments. You can start to section and pan within the actual design itself. So from here, if I want to go ahead and create a comment on the design, we can create this on a part or a point. So if I just create a point just here, we can then reply to the comment that was initially created. So we can go ahead and say, looks good. Can we create the rest of the sofa and see how it comes out? So if we post that, that's then going to get, again, post that comment directly to our file itself. Puts a little bubble within the web browser, but if we pop back to Fusion, open up our comments tab, that exists directly there. So instant collaboration directly within Fusion itself. So if I click on that icon or that comment itself, it will then take me to the view that that comment was created in. And we can also go ahead and click on the actual comment and it will open it up within its own window itself. So again, we can start to see in more detail how that person wants to go ahead and collaborate. So from here, we want to go ahead and develop this a little bit further and create the rest of the sofa itself. So what we'll do is we'll just edit this part. Now we want to create an area where people can sit. So what we're going to do is just quickly add in an extra edge here. And you'll notice why when I go ahead and mirror the design. So we've added that edge. We want to mirror this to the other side because obviously we want 2 armrests. So what we'll do is we'll just mirror the design to the other side. We're not worried about the overall size at the moment. We're going to go ahead and make a change there in a moment. And what we want to go ahead and do is just join these up by the actual seat section. So those areas there that I've just sectioned off. So what we'll use is a tool called Bridge within Fusion. And this is going to allow us to quickly and easily join those 2 sections of the design within Fusion itself. So it gives us the ability to quickly and easily start to iterate on the design and create the kind of design that we need. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is a very small sofa. What we actually want to go ahead and do here is have potentially 3 people sit on the sofa. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just quickly drag these out a little. So again, just using what we term edit form, we'll just grab the section that we need to and just drag. Now, one of the key things that I've got turned on here is symmetry. So once I did the bridge, we've got symmetry turned on. So if we do something on one side, it will repeat it on the other. So we'll grab and drag that out, giving us a bit more depth to the actual sofa itself. Now again, I don't know about you guys, but I'd like a sofa that had a back to it. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just adjust this design to suit. Now the silhouette that you see is just the original design. So again, a really nice way of quickly and easily iterating through what we're creating. So again, just like before, we're going to create some edges within our design itself. And we're just going to go ahead and pick on some edges within the actual part itself. So all of the edges that are going to go ahead and create the back itself. So these 2 sides and the bottom itself. Once those edges are created, we've now got a section that we can go ahead and use to then drag up and start to make some changes to. So at this stage, I'm just going to turn symmetry off within our design so we can quickly and easily start to make these changes. So I'm just going to grab these areas just here. Again, just back into the edit form. And again, I'm just going to hold down Alt on my keyboard. We're going to just drag these up and we can start to create, like I mentioned, that concept that we had earlier on. And again, just going to pick these sections just here. Oh, let's just do that with another control key. There we go. There we go. And then again, what we'll do is we'll just drag those up to create the back of the sofa. And then again, if we want the top of the sofa to be slightly smaller, we can just grab those, drag those down. And what we may also want to go ahead and do here is just tilt it back a little bit because that's very straight. So what we'll do is we'll just grab those, and again, we'll just create a quick tilt, moving that sofa section back a little. So again, we've got a nice finish to the design. And what we also may want to go ahead and do is just drag this front section out. So again, if you wanted to go ahead and make any changes just here, we can go ahead and just pick on any of these faces and start to drag those out as well if we needed to. So again, giving us the ability to quickly and easily start to develop that concept exactly how we need them to be. So no need to worry about sketches, making changes and bits and pieces like that. So once that's done, our sofa's practically done, or the concept's done. So it's a real nice finish, quite quickly designed within Fusion itself. Back into the comments, we just want to go ahead and get some approval at this stage. If we wanted to, we can at this point put an appearance to the design, maybe go to a render and go ahead and show someone this in a rendered environment. But what we're going to go ahead and do is at this stage just publish it as it is. So we can say sofa concept done. What do you think? So again, we'll post that, and that's then going to go ahead and create another post that we can use. Now what we're doing here as we go is we're actually capturing versions. So you might see along the top we get a V3, V4, V5. So what we're doing with that is that we're capturing every version that we create within Fusion. So if you ever need to go back, you have the ability to go back. So I'm just going to give this a quick refresh. I'll pop back to our main project itself and do a refresh from there. And again, what you can see is each of the comments that we've created are captured with the version itself. So again, if you ever need to go back to a version, you'll then go ahead and start to find that you've got all of these versions that you can then start to see all the comments created per version. And then with that, if we hit the View tab, this is then going to go ahead and put us directly back into that view environment. And as we can see, the sofa's updated and everything's working as it should do. Now with that, we can again start to comment on points or objects. So again, if I wanted to comment on a point, we can create a comment. So we can say, looks great. Can we push this into production? That's a nice bit of approval there quite quickly within the design. So again, really quickly and easy, collaborating with customers, collaborating with users within the company, we can start to create some really quick and easy ways of creating approvals and bits and pieces directly within Fusion. And again, captured directly within the Fusion environment itself. So let's just pop back into the PowerPoint quickly. So that's just a real brief intro into the concept side of things. Again, it's not a really detailed sofa. You'd go a bit further with it, but it gives you the idea of quickly using the form environment or freeform environment within Fusion, creating a quick concept, pushing that to the customer or people internally within the company and saying, is this good? Is this not? And then starting to develop a real quick and easy way of actually creating approvals directly within Fusion itself. Now, like that customer's mentioned, we want to go ahead and move into a more production environment. So within the production environment, we may need to go ahead and generate a framework directly within the sofa itself. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just shell out the internals and create a sofa using your standard techniques, lines, arcs, circles, dimensions, and then start to generate the information we need at this stage. So again, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll pop straight back into Fusion. And from here, as you can see, that comment was posted back into Fusion and we can see it just there. So what we'll do is we'll just try and finish off this design using that production environment. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do here is just shell the part. So we have our shell tool. Now I'm using the S key to get to this sketch toolbox or model toolbox, and from here we can start to search for the tool that we need. So I want shell, so I just type in shell and then I can specify the faces that I want to go ahead and remove and give this a wall thickness. So I've set it 2 mil wall thickness. It'll give you a nice preview showing you that wall thickness, and quite quickly we've created the shell within Fusion itself. Now I want to see that shell all the way through, so let's just quickly create a section for the design itself. He says, there we go. And then what we'll do is again we'll just pick up on a plane that we want to section through, just so that we can see that design is completely shelled all the way through. So that same plane, what we'll do is we'll create a sketch, and what we'll go ahead and do is just try and create a really rudimentary kind of framework to sit within this, because obviously we'd have the frame, we'd have some cushions on top of that, and then we'd have this outside shape which would be the textile. And again, I'll go into how we develop this a little bit further from there. So let's go ahead and start off with just our line tool. I've hit a keyboard shortcut of L to activate it, so you can quickly and easily start to develop the line. And now what I want to go ahead and do is just create a framework without capturing any of these internal lines or edges. So I'm just going to hold down Control on my keyboard to do that. And then with that, what we'll do is quite quickly just generate some lines within our design itself. So these are going to be the real hard edges that we're going to need for the design. And again, like I mentioned, we're just going to create a few of these in place. So again, we can quickly start to just generate the kind of framework we need for our sofa. With that, what we'll also go ahead and do is we'll just put some arcs to this design. So again, I'm just going to create some 3-point arcs for our design itself. Again, giving us the ability to quickly and easily start to use your standard tools that you would do within parametrics. And again, giving us a final kind of framework that we can then go ahead and use. So that's kind of the framework that we need, but we need to add in a few more constraints. So over on the right hand side of the screen, we can pick the constraint that we need, start to add in tangency to some of these curves. So again, gives us the ability just to finish off that design exactly as we need to, make sure all the constraints and bits and pieces are in place. Now from that, I want to add some dimensions. Now I may want to make these two lines just here and here parallel. So again, we'll add a quick constraint in for those, and just hitting the D key on the keyboard, we can go ahead and create some dimensions as well. So you're not tied down to the method that I showed you earlier with just the freeform. You can, again, just use your standard methods of parametrics to quickly and easily start to create the kind of elements that you need for the design as well. So again, giving you that mixed environment that you can go ahead and use. Now I'm not going to dimension everything, it's just so that you guys can see this. And then what we'll do is we'll pick up on those faces or that sketch that I've created. We'll go into a tool called Press Pull, and this is going to allow us to quickly and easily start to develop this shape. So create an extrude. With that, we can specify just it's going to be symmetric, and then we can start to move that out to the size that we need it. Obviously, we're in a section, so we're cutting off half of the design. But what I'll do is I'll hide out the rest of the body, and we'll create the rest of it. So we're just going to make this 18mm, so 9mm either side of that sketch. Click OK. And that's created that design for us. Now what we may want to go ahead and do here, just while we're still in the section, is we're slightly short on the actual top of the design, and we don't want to fill that whole void with cushion. And again, same thing here, we don't want to fill that whole void with cushion. So if we want to go ahead and make a change here, instead of going into the sketch to do this, Fusion 360 is really flexible. So it allows us to go ahead and do what we term a direct edit move. With that, we can quickly pick up on the face that we want to move, and just grab and drag, and we can start to move that face to the size that we need it to be. Now I can move that up, down, left, right, and we can start to generate the actual kind of shape that we need without us having to go into the part, start to look, or into the sketch for the component we've created, look for the dimension, maybe change the sketch, maybe remodel it completely. Fusion gets rid of that hassle itself. So it gives us the ability to quickly and easily capture these and actually create the kind of move that we need for the part itself. So again, moving these back and forward, it will still maintain everything within the design itself, but just giving us that real nice flexible approach to modeling. So again, we're not tied down to one route of modeling itself. So once that's done, what we'll do is we'll just turn our section view off, and we're just going to go ahead and hide away the main sofa itself. So what we may want to go ahead and do here is create, again, we're creating a framework, so one isn't going to be enough, so we need a couple either side. So what I'm going to do is just bring back that sofa, or turn it into a more see-through or transparent sofa, and with that, what we'll do is we'll just pattern that framework that we've got within the design. So I'm just going to create a quick pattern. Again, this is just going to be rectangular. I'm going to go ahead and pick up on the body that we want to use, which is that one, the direction in which we want to go ahead and pattern, which is that way, and again, we can just quickly start to pattern. Now I want 2 of these, so we may want 3, but I only want 2 for this process just at the moment, and then again we can start to specify the dimensional sizes. So I may actually want to go to about 250, so we'll go minus 250, so it's right at the edge of that part, and what we'll also go ahead and do there is repeat that pattern, and again specify that same body, specify this the same direction, go the other way, and again we'll make that 2, and we will go ahead and make that 250. There we go. So once that's done, we can already see we've got an issue. So again, these two parts here are actually sticking out further than the actual sofa itself. So we need to make a change. Now, I've already shown you that it's quite quick and easy to make changes within Fusion. So what we're going to go ahead and do is use that same tool, like I mentioned before, move copy, and start to make some changes. So I'm just going to pick up on some faces. So I'm going to pick that face there, and then again we can start to specify pivots. So I'm actually going to go ahead and hide out this main sofa. We're going to go ahead and pick that point just there. We can bring this back in, and then again just dragging these back in. Let me just zero that off and select it. Dragging these back in gives us the ability to make those changes to those two patterns that we've created independently of the first one. So again, gives us the ability to really quickly and easily create a really detailed, nice finish to the design itself and make sure that you've got the right design first time round. So now that's done, we can hide out the sofa and we're going to go ahead and create just a section where we need a bit of framework within the design itself. So again, I'm going to just go ahead and create a sketch on this front face. And what we'll do, I'm just going to freehand the sketch itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick up on a rectangle. We're going to go from about here to here. Again, I mentioned it before, you can start to put in dimensions to these if you needed to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just quickly pick up on the areas that I want to go ahead and use. So we'll just pick up on these just here, and we'll go straight into 3D. And again, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go two sides. So we'll pick that one there, and we're just going to create the cut initially, and then we're going to go ahead and generate the part itself that was going to sit in there. Now, one of the key things for Fusion is, again, it's flexible, so I can actually re-anchor the dimension to that side and say, actually, that's going to be a minus, let's say, 10 mil from that edge. And then again, we can do the same thing on the other side. Again, just grab that dimension just there, re-anchor to that face and say that's also going to go ahead and be minus 10 mil. So again, a real flexible key way of actually creating a set of designs just there. And then again, what we're going to go ahead and do is just create the part that's going to sit within this. And all I need to go ahead and do, instead of creating sketches, we can just pick up on faces that we need to go ahead and create the part for, drag that out, and it starts to generate that component itself. Now what we're going to do is create this as a new body. Obviously they're going to be two different parts. And then what we'll also go ahead and do is just specify that they're going to go up to that face there, and both of those components are created. So really quickly and easy, we can generate the kind of components that we need directly for our design very fluidly within Fusion itself. So popping back into the PowerPoint quickly, that sets off our production side of things. So again, really quickly and easy, we can harness the standard techniques that we have with parametrics, so generating a line, putting a dimension to it, but we also have the freeform fluid way of doing that by just using move and using direct techniques to quickly and easy start to generate the design that we need. Now what we may also want to go ahead and do is just test this design. Make sure that it fits the correct kind of weight that we're going to go ahead and be putting to the sofa itself. So integrated directly within Fusion are some really high-end testing tools. So let's just pop back to Fusion and let's go ahead and take a look. Now, I've been working in model or sculpt spaces at this moment in time. Now these are just the areas that we're actually working in so that we can generate models or we can generate sculpts, so freeforms. But if I click on that tab, we have extra workspaces that we can go into. So like I mentioned right at the start, we've got an integrated platform. So instead of you adding something in, we can actually go ahead and just flick to a different workspace and it will then go ahead and take us directly to that workspace. In this scenario, it's simulation. So we have some really detailed high-end simulation tools that you guys can use on a day-to-day basis. Whether this is during your production design or design validation, whether this is moving a bit further on. So we have static stresses, frequencies, thermals. We can also go ahead and start looking at the first level of generative design, which is something called ShapeOp, which looks at topology optimization, so the shape of the product itself. For this example, we're just going to go ahead and look at static stress. If I click OK to that, what we can then go ahead and do is just work left to right and start to generate the simulation itself. Now, I just want to turn off the main sofa because we're not going to go ahead and test that main part. So just in our model components, I'll just uncheck that quick box. What we'll then do is just specify our materials. Now we're not going to make this out of steel. Just for this example, we would be making this probably out of wood, but we're going to go ahead and use an aluminium. So we'll just use a 2014 T4, and that's going to go ahead and set the structure itself. We're then going to go ahead and put a constraint to the part. So I'm going to just go ahead and specify the constraint on each side of this part itself, and we're just going to analyze the center section itself. So this is kind of like, where would this part be fixed in a real life scenario? So you may have a bit more framework just there to fix that component in. And then what we'll do is we'll just specify a load. Now these loads can be specified on individual faces, or we can actually limit the target of the load itself. Now for this design, I'm actually going to go ahead and just specify 1,000 newtons. So we're working at approximately about a ton. Now we can go ahead and start specifying pressures, moments, remote forces, bearing loads, but I'm going to click OK to that, and that's then going to go ahead and set our force for us. Once the force is set, all we've got to do is specify contacts. Now these are generated because we've got an assembly here, and it's just the interaction with each of the parts itself. And once that's done, prior to us running the simulation, we have a couple of checks we can do. Firstly, at degrees of freedom, make sure everything is actually fixed as it should do. And secondly, just a quick pre-check to make sure that we've got all the information ready before we actually solve. Once we hit the Solve tool or the Solve tab, we have the ability to harness the cloud. Now, I haven't talked much about it just yet, but Fusion 360 is what we term hybrid cloud. So you have portions of Fusion 360 that work on the cloud, portions that don't. The main software is a local install. The data itself, like I showed right at the start, with the data panel is stored on the cloud, but we can also go ahead and harness the cloud for solving and capabilities where it would take a while to use the hardware that we've got on to our disposal. So if it's a really number crunching calculation like a simulation could be, we can go ahead and push this directly to cloud. And especially if we don't have the hardware, it's useful to do that. Or if we do have the hardware on our machine, we can go ahead and have the option to solve locally. So if I hit a local solve, I'm going to just solve this locally. I have got the hardware on my machine itself, and this is then going to go ahead and just run through just a very quick local solve itself. And again, like I mentioned right at the start, it is quite high-end simulation itself directly within Fusion. It's NASTran, so you might know that, might know the name. And from here, what we can go ahead and see is start to see safety factors within the design. We can start to look at stresses as to where those stresses are occurring, and we're barely stressing that design with that 1 ton load, probably because we are using 18 mil aluminium over the whole thing. And we can also start to look at displacements, and any of these results can be animated. So from here, we can quickly and easily start to animate each of the results itself, giving us a really nice detailed way of actually showing these results to someone. Now, one of the really key things for us is communication. So if I pop back into that web browser, what we'll do is we'll pop back into our testing project just to give this sofa a refresh. What we can then go ahead and do is start to view this design. Again, those simulations that I've just run are captured within our design environment itself. So from here, what we can go ahead and do is load that simulation directly in the web browser. So we're not, again, having to produce a report as a Word document, PDF, so on and so forth, and email that to a customer. What we can actually go ahead and do is quickly start to look at stresses within the design directly within the web view. No need for us to go down that route and get any of that or have to produce any of that overall data itself. We can go ahead and export any of this data out as well. So if you wanted to, you can go ahead and start exporting any of the results as PDFs if you wanted to, PNGs, JPEGs, but we also can create a report either as HTML, Word, or PDF. So once that's done, we're happy with the testing result that we're getting. Let's go ahead and move into the visualization side of things. So we want to go ahead and create some really nice visuals. Obviously, we're creating something that someone's going to buy potentially off a visual. So we need to go ahead and have some really nice tools to do this. So Fusion does. We have the ability to create some really detailed renders directly from the products that we generate. So what we're going to go ahead and do is pop back into Fusion itself. And again, it's just a quick switch on the workspace and we're over into a rendering environment itself. What we may want to go ahead and do is just turn on the main body, because that's what people are going to see. And from here we can then go ahead and start to specify the views and bits and pieces that we need. So the view that you see on screen here is the view that is your camera. So from here I can specify what kind of view that I want to go ahead and work with. We can then start to specify any appearances. So we have a whole host of appearances directly within Fusion, but we can also go ahead and start downloading extra appearances directly into Fusion as well. Now I have a customer who generates sofas, and what they do is they get their customers to send them over a swatch of appearance. So what they'll do, the customer will then take a photo of the swatch of the appearance, they'll upload it into the web browser, my customer then downloads that, puts it into the actual, into Fusion itself, renders the design and sends it back within an hour. So it gives that customer, again, what we mentioned, a product as a service, giving you a nice detailed way of communicating with the customers itself. Now, for all I need to go ahead and do with these appearances is drag and drop. We can at this stage start to edit those if you wanted to edit any colors or changes. And with that, we can then start to specify any scenes. So we have a whole host of different scenes that you can go ahead and use. And again, they're just drag and drop, just like the appearances. And again, you can start to specify any information for those as well. So if I wanted to turn reflections on for the bottom and the background itself, you can. And then you can start to specify perspectives, exposures, and also depth of field. So if I want my depth of field to be there, I can. I'll put, let's say, a 0.25 blur on it. And this is then going to go ahead and give us the ability to run just a very quick in-canvas render. So this is going to turn my rendering, my screen into a render itself. And it gives us the ability to quite quickly and easily start to generate some really high quality visuals for customers. Again, for them to go ahead and see exactly what you're going to be creating for them. And we're using a technology called ray tracing to do this. Now what ray tracing does is it just passes over the image and refines that to a threshold that you set. So I've got my threshold set at excellent, and it will just iterate through the design and go through that and start to generate the kind of render that you need. Now once you're happy with it, you just hit the render button, and from here, again, just like the simulation, you have the ability to run cloud or local. So again, if you don't have the hardware on your machine, you can run a cloud render, or if you do have the hardware, you can go ahead and run local renders itself. And it also just gives you a quick render queue time as well. So really quickly and easy, you can start to create some quite stunning visuals directly from Fusion. Again, a real nice way of actually creating some detailed information that you can then pass on to customers and show them exactly what you're going to go ahead and give them. And then finally into the create phase. Now, great, we've generated all this 3D data. What we actually want to go ahead and do is produce the product in real life. So again, popping back to that integrated platform for Fusion, we have the ability to run 3D printing operations as well as CNC operations directly within Fusion itself. So let's jump into Fusion and let's go ahead and take a look at these. So popping back into Fusion itself, let's say we want to go ahead, I'll just return the opacity back to 100%. Let's say we want to go ahead and just give the customer maybe a 3D representation of the sofa itself. What we can do is just generate a quick 3D print for them. So we have our Make tab along the top. If you wanted to do this via Bureau Services, you can. We've got some links to them there. But you can also go ahead and just use 3D print directly within Fusion. From here, we can go ahead and select the body that we want to use. We have the ability to specify refinement, so we can save an STL out there, or we can send this to a 3D print utility. So if you've got a 3D printer, you might have a bit of software for that. You can then go ahead and push that to that software. We also have software at Autodesk that does do that. Something like Mesh Mixer or Print Studio, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and pop this into. So once Print Studio is fired up, there we go, we can then go ahead and start to see that our sofa is actually a lot bigger than the print volume that I'm going to go ahead and work in. Now we don't need to print to that size, so what we need to go ahead and do is just give them a nice look and feel representation. So we can specify our printer along the top, so it gives us the ability to choose the one that we want to use. We can center the main part in the design itself, but we can also go ahead at this stage and do just a quick scale to fit. So it gives us the ability to quickly and easy start to move, pan, zoom, rotate, change the size of this part itself. And if we wanted to move this in a specific direction, we can within the design itself, so within the print volume. Once we're happy with it, popping over to our supports, we can then go ahead and optimize the rotation for the design. We can go ahead and add supports to our product itself. So this thinks that printing it that way is the best way to do it. And then once our supports are added to the design, we can then go ahead and prepare this design for print itself. So again, really quickly and easy, we get a nice look and feel of how that part's going to print directly within its volume. If we hit the preview tab, this is then going to go ahead and start generating the slices for the 3D print. And these are generally termed as toolpaths. So once that's printed, it will then go ahead and give us, or generated, it will give us a preview within a slider, and it also shows us how long it's going to take to print. So from here I can just drag this slider and it will start to show us how that part's going to print. So again, a really nice look and feel for the customer, so they can then go ahead and start to see how that part's going to be printed and how it's then going to go ahead and work. You can at that stage export to the printer file or the native printer file and then just put this directly to print. Now what about if we want to go ahead and just look at this part and maybe CNC manufacture it? So again, we have our CAM module directly within Fusion itself. So again, just a quick workspace switch into CAM, and from here we have our standard CAM operations. Now for Fusion, we can do anything from 2.5 up to 5 axis simultaneous directly within Fusion itself, and it gives you the ability to take your design from art to part. So the first thing we need to go ahead and do is just generate a setup for the design. So this is then just going to be the stock that we're going to be using. And from here we can then start to specify maybe your model orientation. So if I want my Z to be up, we can go ahead and make sure that it's up. And then we can specify the corner that our origin is going to be at. So once the stock's set, again, just like the simulation, just like the render, just like the modeling, we start from left to right. We can then go ahead and do some manual toolpaths. So we can specify some manual roughing strategies, some facing or contouring, or we can have Fusion's CAM go ahead and do that for us. So we can go ahead and use an adaptive clearing. We specify the tool that we're going to use out of our tool library. Now the tool library itself can actually go ahead and be customized. I'm using 2 monitors here, that's why there's a slight delay there. But you can customize that tool library to suit the tools that you guys have. So for this design, I'm going to use a 5/16 flat end mill. We'll click OK. All the feeds and speeds are set with the tool. We can specify what we're going to machine, any of the heights, any stock that we want to go ahead and leave on the design, any ramping conditions and bits and pieces. So if I just click OK to that, it's then going to go ahead and run away and create all of the toolpaths required to then create that component itself. And from that, it gives us the ability to quickly and easily start to simulate. So it's just going to quickly finish off creating the toolpaths. There we go. And then if we simulate, I'll just turn the stock on, and quite quickly we can then start to see how the part's actually going to be cut out of a bit of stock that big. So again, this could be useful if you're going to be using wood, or even you're going to be cutting out steel for framework, but it gives you the ability to quickly and easily start to see how that part's going to be finished and cut. Now what we may also want to do here is, if we're going to be cutting this out of wood, we may want to use something like a water jet. So we have the ability to use water jet, plasma, or even laser cutting methods directly within Fusion as well. We just specify the tool that we want to use. So this is just the kerf width of the actual cutter itself. So I'm going to use just a 1 mil because we're going to be cutting this out of water jet. Again, we can specify the contour that we want to cut. So I'm just going to pick the upper face because we are looking to cut that edge out of that bit of stock. Then again, we can specify height, passes. So if we wanted to go ahead and choose any compensation types, any stock to leave. And again, any leads in and leads out information that you need. So once that's done, it's then going to generate us a 2D contoured path. So this is a water jet toolpath. And if I just simulate this path, what we can then go ahead and see, if I just pop to a right view, play that through, this is then going to go ahead and generate us that exact contour that we need for water jet cutting the part itself. So again, gives us the ability to harness not just your standard machining tools, but also going ahead and looking at water jet and laser and plasma. So a real quick intro into the create phase. So again, giving us the ability to have that one integrated platform all the way through to generate the sofa that we've got just here. So again, we started off with a bit of freeform modeling, so real quick concept generation just to create the general base shape of the sofa. We then moved into production, so we started looking at parametrics, and we also looked at a little bit of direct modeling where we could just push and pull, giving us the flexibility of using different modeling techniques.
moved into the testing phase, make sure that someone can sit on the sofa without it breaking, into the actual visualization, so creating a really nice finished render, which this is from Fusion 360, this render on screen, and then finally into the create phase to then generate that part as an actual component. So taking that design from art directly through to part. Now, one of the other key things with Fusion is its roadmap. So what you might notice is we're completely transparent with Fusion 360 itself. So you guys can go online to that website at the bottom and actually view the roadmap for the software itself. So it gives you the ability to see what we're working on at any one time within the design itself or within Fusion itself. So it shows you the future of Fusion. You can also add your own ideas to this. So we do have a way to go and under Idea Station, under the same blog post, you can then go ahead and start to add ideas to what you want in Fusion as well. And we do listen to them. So again, I definitely implore you guys to go ahead and have a look. Go to autodesk.com/products/Fusion 360 and the blog, and you can then start to see all our roadmaps and what we're working on at any one time. So if you want to find out more about Fusion itself, again, you can either visit the previous website or this one, which is autodesk.com/Fusion. And from here, you'll get the ability to start to look at our customer examples. You can then go ahead and start to see all of the roadmap information, the blogs, the final forum posts and bits and pieces that you guys can see, and see how Fusion's developed over the past few years as well. So again, I implore you guys to go ahead and take a look. And that was Fusion 360 for furniture design, using a sofa as an example. I've answered as many questions as I could as we went through the actual webinar itself. I've got them saved within the webinar, so I'll reply back to them as we go. But if you do have any other questions, by all means, either go to the website or go ahead and just drop me an email. My email was in the actual webinar itself. So thank you guys for attending the webinar today. I hope it was useful. And by all means, I implore you guys to go ahead and take a look and have a stab at it. Thank you guys.